you're acquiescing to them. And that's pretty well all you have left at the moment, is to change yourself and say, no, okay, I'll suffer and take the consequences. And with enough people locked up as martyrs, that's how Ireland helped to free itself too, with all the thousands of people getting slammed in these prisons during the Troubles. And
notice, though, Alan, that how they tried to pass the EU the first time, then they passed it the second time. Ireland was this panacea of great, wealth, and then overnight, oh, you're bankrupt now. Foreign bankers are taking you over. And the head of their central bank admitted, he said, foreigners now rule us. I think that's good. I mean, so in your face.
Well, the Russian mafia moved in on block. A whole lot of them, a lot to LA, and the rest ran off to places in Europe. But Ireland was a big place because they were getting lots of grants from the EU. And, of course, the mafia was in there like a shot. And when the Russian mafia accumulated all the dirty deeds and fake bonds and all the rest of it, they ran off with the loot and helped bankrupt the country. That was all set up in advance because the Russian mafia works with the globalists, you see.
Absolutely. Well, Alan, we're out of time. I appreciate you joining us. Look forward to speaking to you again with the great work you're doing on an upcoming eugenics film we've got with incredible interviews with you. Great having you. Continue your great research.
Well, thanks for having me on, Alex.
Great having Alan Watt of CutThroughTheMatrix.com. And again, we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, getting into what's happening with the weather. And we love interviewing people that have actually been accurate in their predictions. We'll be right back after this quick break. PrisonPlanet.tv.
From his Central Texas Command Center, deep behind enemy lines, the information war continues. It's Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
Are we a nation of truth lovers or truth rejectors? We've got Chuck Baldwin's latest column up at Infowars.com. And by the way, tomorrow we've got the big exclusive video interview with Chuck Baldwin on the globalist, where he's going in the future, just so much. That's going up on PrisonPlanet.tv. So is the Russell Means Native American leader. Incredible video from Wounded Knee. That's going up Monday. A lot of exclusive videos at PrisonPlanet.tv. And don't forget, we're going to run this special for another week or two. We do it every Christmas and then into the new year a little bit. 5 months free right now at PrisonPlanet.tv. The video streaming of the live radio show, the archives, all my films in super high quality. And it is your purchase and support of PrisonPlanet.tv and the memberships that make so much of what we do here possible. Now, coming up in the next segment with him, I'm going to play a short clip from Fox, and I've got other British news saying, the same thing. We had this guy on a year ago. And the mainstream meteorologists and media were predicting basically hardly any winter, the end of snow. And he went in on our show, and he's a meteorologist and astrophysicist. And I've looked at his record. I mean, he's paid by different farmer almanacs, you name it, to really give farmers the real research. What the old timers knew, they didn't understand it. They just knew the moon had a big effect on the weather as basically a lensing or amplifying effect with the solar winds that sends in so many particles into the atmosphere. Then there's the other big contributor, which is the magnetic field of the Earth, but it's also affected by the solar winds. Mainline meteorologists supposedly ignore all this and use these ridiculous computer models that the science has found is about as accurate as a Ouija board or a Wheel of Fortune. But Piers Corbyn, year after year after year, and it's all chronicled at weatheraction.com, is accurate, a lot more accurate than the mainstream. And he predicted the coldest winter in a long time, massive snowfall, when it would hit, what would happen. And ladies and gentlemen, he did this almost a year out. I mean, this is incredible. And he does it over and over again, following the old-timer systems, which they didn't know why it was. They just knew the moon had to do with it. And he joins us, Piers Corbyn, to talk about what's happening now and what he sees happening coming up throughout the summer and next year, or is that too early to tell? Piers Corbyn, congratulations again on stunning accuracy.
Thanks very much. It's great to be here.
Well, you got the floor. We've only got you for 20 minutes. Tell us what's currently happening, how you predicted it, how it works, and what's coming up next.
Well, last May, we said at a conference, an energy conference, that December in Britain would be cold and snowy. We didn't give any more detailed on that. But then in November, we put out a detailed forecast saying that we expected it would be the coldest December for 100 years. Nobody believed us. And that is, in fact, exactly what happened. In fact, it's the central England temperatures are the second coldest in the full record of 352 years.
I'm going to have to interrupt you, Piers. I'm sorry. You were here in May of last year, and people can go to my YouTube channel or prisonplanet.tv and watch it. You said on the east coast of the U.S., incredible snowfall, freezing, Canada snowed in. You predicted a super cold winter. I mean, you're really playing down what you did.
Well, that's true. Yes, it's true. Fair enough. I was also going to add that we did. We predicted the very specific blizzard which hit New York just after Christmas, and we put out a detailed forecast for that 2 weeks ahead. Although we'd had obviously ideas longer ahead. But what
is the truth? I mean, some news is saying the coldest in 1,000 years, but we don't have good records of that. Others are saying in 300. I mean, what's your evidence show? I mean, does this mark sliding into a new ice age, as many astrophysicists and meteorologists believe?
Yes, of course. Standard meteorology will just say everything's going to go back to the norm. Now, we say, well, in Europe and in many parts of America, for sure, it's going to carry on extremely cold in January and February. Our longer range view is that we are heading towards a mini ice age, and we'll be well into that. It'll be at its coldest in about 25 years' time. We're going to see more of these cold or very cold winters with extraordinary blizzards in them, and more lousy summers, both in Britain and Europe and in the USA.
Okay. Again, you're the true expert on this. How is your perspective on approaching the science so much different than mainline meteorology? I mean, I know you've broken that down before, but explain that to people, and then let's continue discussing what's happening this year and what you see coming next year.
Okay. Standard meteorology looks at the weather now, sees how everything's moving, and then says, well, if that's moving towards this, something will happen, and then it will do this and that, and they can predict forwards. However, after about 4 days, it breaks down, and it becomes very inaccurate. The reason for that is there's external influences driven from the sun and the moon interrupting the flow of charged particles from the sun. Now, this solar-lunar influence dictates the changes in the jet stream, which are the change in weather patterns. And what we've had in the last 6 months especially, and it's going to carry on this year, is significant jet stream blockings, whereby the jet stream is kept in more or less the same place for a while. And that has caused the super heat wave in Russia, for example, which we predicted, and we predicted when it would end. Caused the floods in Pakistan, and similarly we predicted...
I know, you predicted everything. You're a regular...
No, not everything.
No, I mean, I remember you in May of last year laying so much of this out. I mean, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we are very pleased. We want to be able to predict everything. As it is, 85% of what we say will happen does happen, but there's a lot of things we haven't yet got a handle on. But some very interesting things going on right now, where it's now obvious that the Queensland floods, if you look at them, the most likely floods have all happened, the biggest floods, in the same phase of the eclipse cycle. Namely, there was an eclipse of the sun on January the 4th, which was near to the peak of this current wave of floods. And the previous waves of floods, very significant ones, were in 1954, 1973, 1992, or thereabouts, which are all separated by 19 years, which is the eclipse cycle. So there was also solar eclipses and around the 4th of January, those times as well. And
so just like a wind tunnel...
Solar effect is why you get the floods.
But I mean, for laymen out there, like a wind tunnel, I mean... So when the moon is basically directly lined up with the solar winds blocking them, what does that generally result in?
It's more complicated than that. Where the moon is, obviously, given the date of an eclipse, also means there's certain patterns before and after that. And through the whole of its orbit, the moon is influencing the solar wind, which then influences the jet stream. What it seems is in certain phases of the eclipse cycle, the moon's motion is favouring jammings and stickings of the jet stream. And when you look at the rain map in Australia now, the standard meteorologist is pointing, look at all this rain, they say, look, it's coming here, and it's staying there. It's always in this place. I mean, it's a stuck jet stream. Now, they scratch their heads and don't know why. But, well, we know why. We don't know the detailed mechanisms, but we do know why.
Okay, why?
And when it's going to happen.
Why? What's triggering it then? I mean, we understand the moon in relation to the sun and the solar wind.
Well, the jet stream would be moving normally all the time, but somehow the moon interrupts the jet stream so that the motion, interrupts the solar wind so that the motion of the jet stream it becomes stuck. Now, we don't understand the details of how it works, but we can say when that type of thing is going to happen and when the jammings of the jet stream will break down.
Well, meteorologist and astrophysicist, consultant and owner of weatheraction.com, who makes weather forecasts up to a year in advance with 85% accuracy. No one else can even get close to that. How can I, just as an average Joe, not a rocket scientist, know that the tides are caused by the moon? So why wouldn't the moon, if it can do that, affect the weather when we know the ocean is one of the biggest terrestrial drivers of the weather? How can mainline meteorology ignore that? I mean, that's moronic, is it not?
Well, it is moronic, yes. But you see, they can't cope with what to do, and they don't know how to put it in. I mean, they could be a lot more intelligent and make applications, but you see, if they were to follow what we say, namely that the main drivers of all these things are external, is the sun and the moon, then they're going to have to ditch their man-made climate change theory, and that is the core of their belief system. So the Met Office in Britain now has even got to the stage where they put on the website it was going to be a mild winter. Then it was cold. So then they announced that they'd actually thought it was going to be cold and had told the government this. Now, this is just unbelievable. I just don't believe them, frankly. It's very possible they put out two forecasts and afterwards they would say which one they really believed in. Obviously the one that was right. But this is complete nonsense and bullshit. And they'll do anything to say that, in fact, it's all caused by CO2. I mean, they come up with cooling is warming. Somehow CO2 has caused some warming somewhere, which has caused a change in circulation, which has caused these blasts of cold air. Well, it's complete nonsense because we can predict these blasts. They're caused by solar lunar influences. Nothing whatsoever to do with carbon dioxide.
Unbelievable. Stay there. Piers Corbyn coming back with us. We'll look into the rest of 2011 into 2012, what his yearly forecast is this time. I know it's a little early, but he'll be ready in the next few months. We'll get an early take from him on the other side. This is just such important information, obviously. Well, we're really honored to have Piers Corbyn of weatheraction.com on with us from England. Very busy guy. I twisted his arm to stay till 45 after because this is a short segment.